This is Aryll's theme from The Legend of Zelda, The Wind Waker. In the game, Aryll is your little sister, a sweet young girl who, despite never doing anything to anyone, gets snatched by a giant bird and carried across the entire ocean to rot in a prison cell in the Forsaken Fortress. Aryll's kidnapping kicks off the very start of the game, and her imprisonment serves as your motivation for continuing risking life and limb in dungeons throughout the bulk of the game, so this theme only pops up a handful of times in the short instances where you actually get in close contact with your sister. Even so, the theme does a wonderful job communicating her youthful innocence and gentle nature, and the theme is also transformed in clever ways in a couple different places in the soundtrack that I want to talk about today. But first, let's look at Aryll's theme itself. Just like the best Zelda melodies, this one is about as simple as it could be while still being memorable thanks to its tried and true structure. A short, memorable motif is established, then repeated so it sticks in your head, and then this is answered by a longer phrase that expands the main motif into a full melodic statement. In this case, the simple 4-note motif winding around a G-sharp note is answered by a phrase that jumps to a D-sharp and walks itself back down to an F-sharp. This divides the melody smartly into a tonic phrase and a dominant phrase by emphasizing the chord tones of the tonic E major triad and dominant B triad, creating a natural sense of progression at the most basic structural level, which is reinforced by the harmony. The melody is completely diatonic to the key of E major, and uses only very simple types of melodic movements, such as scalar motion and neighbor motion, and I think this contributes to the sense of innocence that fits with Aryll's character. In spite of the sparseness of the piano accompaniment and the relative simplicity of the harmony, the chord progression is coordinated such that it manages to draw some great colors out of the melody, like the major 7th and 9th of some of the underlying chords. It's these colors that contribute to the sweetness of the theme, the beauty of it, and we can't help but associate this with our hero's relationship with his sister. The simplicity of the main 4-note motif makes it very easy to transform to fit other musical contexts while still keeping it recognizably Aryll's theme. A great example of this transformation is in Aryll's Kidnapping, the scene where Aryll finds herself a victim of abduction by Giant Bird. Aryll's theme enters as Aryll does, calling to us from the other end of a rickety rope bridge. As the silhouette of our fearsome feathered foe emerges from the clouds, these high violin cluster chords cut off the end of Aryll's theme, and gradually more and more chaotic brass figures build us up until the moment Aryll's swept away. Notice this trumpet figure that comes in as the music hits its climax, playing this repeating 4-note figure: B, G-sharp, F-sharp, G-sharp. This is, in fact, the main motif of Aryll's theme, in a completely different context than we heard it just seconds earlier. As you draw your sword and chase after the flying beast, the music switches to this determined reharmonization of the theme, with driving offbeat string power chords harmonizing the figure first in G minor, then A flat minor. The chromatically rising harmony and driving rhythm creates a sense of urgency, and changing out what should be a B flat melody note to a B natural, even over a B flat in the bass, adds a sense that something is not right. The musical frenzy comes to a sudden halt as Link charges straight off a cliff and just about gets a game over before the adventure even starts. Caught just in time, we can only watch as Aryll is carried away into the distance, this helplessness symbolized musically by another reharmonization of Aryll's theme. Rather than centering around the 3rd of our tonic major chord, this exact same melodic figure is now balanced on the 5th of a C sus chord. It's neither major nor minor. This chord is ambiguous. But once the bird's silhouette disappears across the horizon, the sus chord reveals its true nature, resolving to a C minor 11 chord. The oboe and French horn harmonizing a 6th apart from each other, a beautiful interval to put in the winds, playing the 9th and 11th of the underlying minor chord is just heart-wrenching. I love the way this D-flat over C chord in the final C minor vamp adds a little bit of Phrygian mode darkness to the part. She's really gone, and our hero has to come to grips with that. It wasn't until thinking about this cue for a while that I came to a realization about Aryll's theme. In the game, Ganondorf is looking for the girl who is secretly Princess Zelda, and so he sends his big pet chicken out to kidnap any girl it finds with blonde hair and long ears, and also Maggie for some reason. The bird was in the middle of nabbing the pirate Tetra, who turns out to actually be Princess Zelda, but makes a mistake and grabs Aryll instead on his way over Outset Island. So close, my guy. Well, to play musically into the fact that Aryll is a Zelda lookalike, Aryll's theme is very much a Zelda sound-alike. Listen to Zelda's Lullaby, the theme used for the princess in every game in the series since A Link to the Past, and let's compare the two. They are both in 3/4 time, both using a similar half-note to quarter-note rhythmic idea, and they both use the same melodic structure I outlined earlier, but the most important elements that make them sound the same are the use of the 5th, the 3rd, and the 2nd of the major tonic chord in the initial phrase, and the leap up to a peak in the answering phrase over a chromatic 3 to flat 3 to 2/5 bass line. Aryll's theme isn't some cheap knockoff of Zelda's. It's got enough of its own identity that I never made this comparison even after beating the game like 10 times. But after noticing the intentional similarities between the two, it's hard not to feel stupid for taking so long to figure it out. This is capital B brilliant musical storytelling. Another example of musical storytelling with Aryll's theme, or maybe it's more musical place setting, is found in the theme of our hometown in the game, Outset Island. It's a pleasant little island full of charming villagers and a soundtrack that's catchier than Omicron. When you first boot up the game, the introductory fanfare accompanies a short visual tour of the island where we'll be starting our adventure, and as soon as little Aryll comes on screen, this melody comes in. Again, there's a degree of subtlety here, and it might slip past you if you're not looking for it, but this is in fact Aryll's theme reimagined in a peppy, staccato 4/4 time. It's the same notes over functionally the same harmony, but the rhythm and arrangement are so different that it shows just how malleable this theme really is. After a while, Aryll's theme comes in this long held note form, which is a lot more obvious about its origins. As a little bonus observation, let's take a look at the second melody of Outset Island's theme. After the Aryll-inspired section, the same chord progression and arrangement support a second, equally catchy melody that starts off with this tonic triad arpeggio figure. This is actually another sound-alike composition, with this initial figure taken from Ocarina of Time's Kokiri Forest theme. Now you might be thinking, 8-bit, but this is completely different. It's just the first 4 notes that are the same. Isn't this just a coincidence? First of all, shut up! How dare you talk back to me? Second of all, take a look just 12 bars after this melody comes in. We have here a note-for-note direct quote from the Kokiri Forest theme. Now, the melody that came in before this is not in any way a ripoff. It's got enough of its own great ideas to fill a pirate ship, but sneaking this quote in afterwards gives away the origins of this melody and proves that it was intentionally using the Kokiri Forest theme as a jumping off point. In Ocarina of Time, the Kokiri Forest theme plays in the village where Link grew up, the place that he must leave for the first time to set out on his adventure to save the world, and Outset Island fills the exact same role for Wind Waker's protagonist. Adding all this together, Outset Island's theme is built around two melodic pillars. Our hero's relationship to his sister, which is obviously associated with the island where the two of them grew up, and the island as the home that our seafaring hero can always return to, the safe haven that he must willingly leave to become a true hero and save his family. And all of this wrapped up into one of the most singable, catchy packages in video game history. Absolutely phenomenal. The Wind Waker soundtrack is filled with rich examples of these kinds of musical illusions, brilliantly supporting the context of the game with a very light touch. The game also incorporated classic Zelda themes into its post-apocalyptic Hyrule better than Breath of the Wild, with most of Zelda's musical legacy up until that point in the series being able to be found somewhere in the soundtrack. I want to bring up just a few of my favorite examples of this in a future video. Maybe two, I don't know. Expect more Wind Waker videos in the future. When? How many? I have no clue, but each one's gonna be mega interesting because this is the best video game soundtrack of all time, hands down. Thank you all for watching this video. Check out my Patreon if you'd like to support the channel, and I'll see you all in the next one.